Hi all, thanks for being here again. And as you know, I'm Nele Odeur. So let's zoom. Just a couple of remarks at the start. If for some reason the connection fails at my side, I try to restart as quickly as possible, as I explained last time also. And if you have a problem, you can refresh the page or leave the session and enter again with the link. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. And yeah, you can do that by unmuting your microphone in the left bottom corner and just ask, or by typing a question in the chat. And Tinder will hopefully help me to manage all the questions. If I fail to see or answer your question, please ask me again. Sometimes it's difficult to keep up with all the questions. I think on Monday it went quite well, so I hope for the best and also for a stable connection for you guys. I hope that you managed to watch all the video. Oh, well, not all the video. I hope you managed to watch the video. And what we are going to do in these 2 hours is, well, there is of course time for questions and answers about the video and the practical assignments. And I hope you all also prepare the ointment and the vinegar. We will do a tasting of plant compounds. We will talk about some of the plants you collected and their compounds. And we will talk a little bit more about why these plant medicine classes are actually very interesting if you conduct ethnobotanical research. But I wanted to start by asking about the recipes and the presentations you all uploaded in the Brightspace. Maybe first about the recipes. Was it fun to do? And maybe who wants to share something about the process? Not all at once.
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I really wanted to make something with red clover because it's just an attractive flower. And I looked on the internet for some recipes, but I couldn't find that many. So I just found a really simple one with rice and orange juice and olive oil, like a salad. And yeah, I thought like I'm just going to try to make that. And there was also mint in there. And I thought, yeah, I could also get that from the wild, like Menta aquatica is not that hard to find generally. So, but then where I'm from, actually, there's a lot of red clover, but in this area it was really difficult to find. Well, it's really a common plant, so I was cycling for a long time. And then I also saw this, yeah, in Dutch is krentenboompje, shed bush, and I saw that and I was like, okay, I could also just use that. Maybe that would be nice with it. And then I cycled on and I saw ground ivy, that's Honstraf. I thought, maybe I could use that to replace the menta, because I couldn't find menta either, which is also really common where I'm from, but apparently not here. And then yeah, I just kind of made my own thing out of it instead of following the recipe. So that was quite fun.
Yeah, that's the experimentation process. That's nice.
Yeah, but the red flowers from the red clover, they didn't add that much taste actually. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Now they don't have a lot of taste, but they can be very sweet if you use them in a specific way. At my website, but it's in Dutch. There's also a recipe for waffles with red clover. But there are some recipes you can find on the internet, but maybe not that many. I don't know. I'm just experimenting myself with all kinds of things. So, somebody else who wants to share something?
Yeah, well, mainly about the dish I prepared. I have this giant burdock in my garden, Artium lapa.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, yeah, it's going to be a little bit bitter because it's known for being bitter. But man, this is so bitter. I never ever ate something so bitter. So yeah, I had to throw it because I couldn't rescue it with soy sauce, neither with wine, neither with lemon juice, nothing worked. So yeah, that was a nice experience.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it ends up being tasty and sometimes it's really nasty. I have the same experience. And yeah, burdock can be quite nice, but I imagine if you really start cooking it, yeah, then the bitter compounds really, well, kick in. Yeah, can imagine. But it's very really nice that you did the experiment, and also with you tied up with nettles. You're the
Yeah,
one that tied up. Yeah, it's really
yeah,
interesting.
I saw a tutorial of Ray Mears, and yeah, they were not super strong because normally you have to dry them and to really put them together and roll them. But it was enough to tie the leaf.
Yeah,
So maybe another time I will make really good rope with it, good
yeah,
strings. Yeah, it was a nice experience.
yeah. And maybe the rest. Maybe you can lift your hand if you think it was an enjoyable experience to do it. And who hated doing it? Maybe there are some people who don't like cooking, then it was maybe a little bit difficult to do. But I think it was, yeah, that you did really nice. Let's see what you're saying in the chat. Yes. Burdock is grote klis, yes, in Dutch. Yeah, it was an enjoyable process, but to be creative, yeah, that's true. With burdock, did you use the root? You used the leaves, no? Robin, I think you used the leaves. Yeah.
Yeah, I used the leaf. Normally, I also cook the root, but this time I don't know. It reminded me of a dish they do in Peru with wrapping things in a banana leaf, and I thought maybe there is something we can do with European leaves as well. And wine leaves are a little bit small, so I thought I go for the biggest ones. But
Oh, and the leaves were really bitter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I cooked them, and with the water, it soaked into the couscous. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine. Oh.
But you also tried the root, so the root is fine.
The root is fine. Yeah, I do it together with potatoes on the fire in the garden, and yeah, they get some parts are a little bit woody, but you can see that already while cutting, and you just peel them off. And most parts are really tasty, juicy, and soft if you cook them.
Nice, nice.
And big. It takes a long time to dig them out because they can be a meter long or something. Really, really big.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plant, and it's a very interesting plant, not only to eat but also a medicinal and a cosmetic plant. So it's a nice one. I wanted to ask, who of you had never experienced before to cook with wild plants? For who of you it was the first time to do something like this? A couple of you. And who had already some experience? Yeah, I already heard. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the process, and I think it is interesting to see how many wild plants here in the Netherlands, but also in other countries, of course, can be used to make a dish. And some of you went all the way, 5 dinners or a 5-course dinner, and others kept it simple. And some of the recipes turned out tasty and others quite nasty. So thanks for taking up the challenge and for trying. I haven't been able to read everything yet because there's a lot of you and a lot of interesting recipes. But as a courtesy to you, I have a little souvenir at the end of this ethnobotany course. I'm going to make it into a little cooking book for you. All the recipes I'm going to well, I'll make a little book and I will upload it later. So then you can try every recipe of your colleagues at home, even the nasty ones if you want to. So I'll try to send it to Tinder before the end of the course, but I think before Monday you will have it. So I thought it would be quite nice. Okay. Okay. That's cool. Okay. And what about the presentations? Was it hard to do? Because I know that for some of you, it wasn't easy to make the video. Huh? It's asked for another skill set than making a real life presentation. So thank you for being so flexible with us. And I enjoyed the videos. I didn't manage to see all yet. And so this evening I'm going to start watching the rest of them. And maybe somebody wants to share something about it, about the process of doing the research or about the process of making the video.
Yeah, I have something to share about my recipe because, so this is pine mochi.
Yeah.
Glutinous rice flour ball, and then it has, well, the thing I tried to do was go, terpenes aren't very water soluble, but I don't have time to extract them in alcohol, and in mochi you use only like a very little amount of oil. It's basically just glutinous rice and water. So I said, hey, I have a mocha pot, let's make a hydrosol, and then use that hydrosol as the water in the mochi and add the steamed needles back into the mochi again. Didn't work at all. The rice dough itself has very little pine flavor, but cutting the pine needles into sugar did actually cause the sugar to absorb some of the aroma. So when you're using a more water-based recipe, what do you do to actually get the flavor of the plant into it? Because yeah, now I had like a little branch of pine, so it just really was not enough to make a proper hydrosol. Also, does making a hydrosol in a mocha pot normally work? It is a steam extraction device, technically speaking.
Yeah, I haven't got any experience with this pot, so I don't know if it really works to make a hydrosol. What you can do to add flavor to a water solution, for example, is using honey, because honey, because of the viscosity, extracts other kinds of also extracts, for example, terpenes, like essential oils, and sugar also works. And of course you can add a fatty kind of substance like milk, or and that can be, of course, regular milk, but also almond milk or other vegetable milks, which aren't technically milks, but then you add some fat, and then other kinds of interesting compounds are extracted. And a good kind of recipe that is used a lot in the Ayurveda, which is Eastern herbal medicine, is chai. And chai is milky infusion. So you use milk in your infusion, and that way a lot more of the compounds are extracted. And you can see in Ayurveda there are a lot of spices like curcuma and cinnamon and ginger, all contain a lot of very interesting liposoluble compounds, which you usually don't extract in a very efficient way with water. But if you add milk, so make it into a chai, then you extract more. So there is a logic behind how they use their spices in the East. So it's not only because they just do that, but because there is a reason behind it, and that's one of the many things you could do to extract it more efficiently.
Okay, I was wondering whether you had a trick or something similar to the hydrosols one to use in water-based recipes that do not have a lot of fat and you don't add milk to mochi.
Yeah, no, I don't I
But,
don't think so.
yeah.
Then you have, well, you can make infusions, you can make decoctions, or you can make hydrosols that are different kinds of water-based recipes, and yeah. But
Then I
yeah,
try to make some booze out of it and use that or something. And thank you very much.
okay.
I'm actually just curious here, with mochi, isn't a lot of the flavoring added to the filling because the outside is still like the glutinous rice?
Yeah, it is. That's why I said like you don't add milk to it. It's
Yeah.
boiled pounded glutinous rice. So there is just no way of doing that.
Yeah.
And
Would it have been easier to add like flavor to the center of it? Like,
yeah, so that's the thing. There's like a quick and easy version of mochi where you don't need to steam and then pound the glutinous rice, but you use glutinous rice flour and a microwave, which is the one I use. And then instead of filling it, which is also quite a trick you need to get in your fingers, you cut it in pieces and you roll it in something. So I use reasonably dry coatings, which is why it's coated in pine sugar. So the green bits on the outside of the mochi, that's a pine sugar. And then normally you would use a black sesame sugar or a peanut sugar or something like that. But yeah, the glutinous dough itself doesn't have crazy amounts of flavor, but you can add flavor by adding rose petals or dried tea.
nice.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see in the chat. We were supposed to add a recipe, yes. And if you add it before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Amsterdam time zone, then I'll put it in the little book. So you can still add it if you want to. Somebody said it was really difficult to put info in 2 minutes. I can imagine, and we wanted you to put it all in 2 minutes. So I can imagine you felt like you left a lot of it out, and about each of the plants you used, you could write a book. So yeah, 2 minutes is really short. In the ads, presenting online is not so easy. Yeah. Robin says, what about the jelly juice of flax seeds or psyllium? Is that extracting the taste? Yeah, because of the viscosity, you probably can extract some more of the taste. Yeah. But we are also, yeah, we will talk more about this also in a minute. And some other experiences with making the video or trying to do the research?
May I say something?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm able to share my screen now, but I maybe have a good trick for making a video on PowerPoint. Or is that...
You can put that in the discussion forum, Sarah.
Okay.
So because then Nele has more time to do all the experiments this afternoon. Yeah.
Yes, but then I will tell it short. There is on the menu, then you can also choose to make a video session, and then you see yourself in the corner. It's also nice when you want to exercise to see how you look. I just wanted to say it, but
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Okay, well, let's just move on. Yeah, in the video of this morning, I asked you to prepare some infusions and decoctions aimed at tasting some of the phytochemicals or plant compounds. Who managed to prepare all 5?
Yeah, I did, but I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Because I kind of misunderstood the video. I thought that the flaxseed you needed to leave it in for like all day,
Yeah.
and the rest you just needed to make in the end to have like warm tea. But then I watched the video again, and then apparently I should have made this in the morning too, right? So I don't know if that's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, let's try. I don't. Well, maybe there's a difference, but let's compare it when we do the tasting. And who of you managed to do some of the extractions? Yeah. And is there also somebody who didn't do anything, or didn't manage to find the different ingredients, or?
Yeah, I didn't have time to go and like walk 30 minutes to a blackberry bush, so I used a raspberry bush. Probably
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, got all 5. Couldn't find the blackberry. Yeah, I can imagine that you couldn't find anything, but not everything, and at least. But let's see what you've come up with. Let's taste the first one together. I ask you to put 1 tablespoon of flaxseed in a little bowl to add some water and to steep it for a couple of hours. Start with a sniff. What do you smell? Take a little bite. How does it taste? Rub it between your fingers. What do you feel? And how is also the feeling in your mouth? So smelling, tasting, feeling. And let's see if somebody wants to give an appreciation of what's happening.
Yeah, I would like to give my opinion. It's very slimy and I don't like it.
Yeah, does it have a lot of taste in your opinion?
Not a lot. It tastes to me a bit like cucumber and rucola.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine a little bit. Somebody else has a different opinion? Is there somebody who really likes it?
Well, I've actually used this a lot of times before because I use it as an egg replacer in recipes, but then I use like ground flaxseed, so it still tastes different than this, but I like it.
Yeah, it's a good replacement for eggs, that's true. It tastes like glue, somebody says in the chat. Tastes oily, yeah.
I think it kind of makes your mouth also a bit dryish, like also with walnuts. It reminds me of walnuts in general.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you.
It is kind of fun to chew on them. I don't know. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit gloomy. Yeah. Really disliking it, yes. Can imagine. And is it that you dislike the taste or the feeling?
It's extremely slimy. It's like one bunk. It's I just dislike it. I will put it.
Are you still there, Nele?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, but is it supposed to be like this? Look
Okay.
how slow it goes.
Yeah, Nele can answer.
Yeah, I think my connection went away for a moment, so you were all still. So I just missed something, I think.
The question?
Yeah.
Yeah, say it, Mikai.
I was asking if it should be this solid. Look, it's not like a drink. It's more like oatmeal.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, yeah. And of course, if you add more water or more milk, then you have a little bit of slimy texture, but now it's really slimy. That's why I asked only to put in a little bit of water. So yeah, it's supposed to be like this. Lotte says, I think my flaxseed germinated. That's it can happen. But let me tell you a little bit about it. Flaxseed contains a lot of polysaccharides, and they have a slimy texture, and they belong to the primary metabolites. And on Monday you had a video about primary and secondary metabolites, and these compounds, these polysaccharides, are called mucilages in phytotherapy. And in general, they are pretty tasteless and maybe a little bit salty, but they are highly polar, which means that they can be extracted in water or in low alcohol percentage. And what they do, mucilages absorb water and make it into a gel. And they can medicinally be used externally, topically on the skin. For example, in case of irritated skin, skin inflammations, sunburns, just to name a few examples. And what they do, they cause a rapid increase in the production of white blood cells, and therefore stimulate cell growth and division. And yeah, it can contribute to faster skin healing if you have a skin problem. And it's also used a lot in cosmetics for the same reason. And internally, if you eat it, mucilages are used to soften mucous membranes, for example, in the digestive tract, in case of irritated bowels or in case of constipation, you can use it. The function in the bowel is as bulk. It softens the stool and it prevents also diarrhea. And if you are constipated, it helps you to go to the toilet. It's also helpful in case of, for example, sore throat or bronchitis, because it softens the mucous membranes of also, your throat area. It also cares for mucous membranes in the urinary tract and also in the reproductive system. For example, you could use this, what you made now, as a lubricant, so flaxseed sacs. Maybe interesting to try, but yeah, some plants are very rich in, some plant families are also very rich in mucilages, such as the Boraginaceae. Plants such as comfrey and common lungwort, which are smearwortel and longkruid. They are rich in mucilages. Also the Malvaceae family with mallow and marshmallow are rich in mucilages. Seaweeds, plantain. And of course there are some plants with a huge amount of these mucilages, such as Irish moss, which is an algae, and which consists of more than 50% of these mucilages. And the specific one in this plant is carrageen, which is also used a lot in all kinds of medicinal, cosmetic, and also edible, well, as a food additive. So it's, yeah, they're interesting, and well, they're also part of this flaxseed, of course. Let's see what you're saying in the chat. Yeah, you can use it as an egg replacement. Yeah, somebody says if you use ground flaxseed, it becomes a gel quite quickly. That is true, but also if you buy it already grounded or broken flaxseed, then a lot of the essential oils in the plant are already evaporated, and these are also very interesting. So that's quite a pity. That's why I always use the the whole ones. And of course you can, for example, grind it before you use them in a mortar, or how do you call it, mortar with a pestle. And so, but it's yeah, you can use it as an egg replacement, just as chia seeds and other things. Flaxseed is healthier when it's ground. Well, if it's ground, then all the different compounds are more easily extracted also in your body. But don't do the grinding yeah, like 2 days before you use it, because then a lot of interesting compounds just evaporate also. So it's yeah, it's healthier, but it depends on when you do the grinding. I don't know. Let's see what else. You can use it in gluten-free bread. Yeah, you're all sharing some experiences. That's really nice. Is there a place where I can find the information? I'll put it on a paper, and then I'll send it also to Tinde. So, and of course, this video you can also listen again to what I say. Susie says, still wondering why viscous liquids extract flavor better. In a way, I don't know really, but there are some, apart from the polarity, there are a couple of features or of your extraction solvents that can enhance extraction, and one can be lowering pH or the acidity, like by using vinegar. Another one is by heating, and also adding some viscosity in the form of gels or honey or something. It also helps, but why exactly that is, I'm not I don't know, but the experience learns that it helps. So it would be interesting to know really why, but I think it has to do with the physical properties, and I'm not a physicist, so I really wouldn't know. So we soak the seeds now, but that doesn't make a difference with eating them dry, right? I think a bit of normal seeds is tastier than the jelly stuff. Yeah, it's always better to soak it, because then a lot more of the compounds are readily available in your body. So if you want to eat it, it's better to soak it. Therefore, they also use the overnight soaking. For example, if you use it in your oatmeal in the morning. I think it's always better, but yeah, you're right. You have to like the feeling in your mouth, and that's not always the case. But let's move on to the two other other infusions and decoctions you made, the ginger and dandelion. Please now taste the two varieties of the ginger. You made an infusion and you made a decoction. Do you taste any difference? And how would you describe the taste? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Is it bitter? Is it hot? And what do you think of dandelion, for example, in comparison with the ginger? If somebody wants to share something about it, just taste it and then. What do you think?
The decoction with the ginger is like, it has way more flavor. It's like super sharp compared to the infused one, which is kind of boring compared to the other one, I'd say. But
yeah, yeah. Somebody else has the same experience, or the other
I
way
have the
around,
same.
maybe?
The one that I didn't boil is really sharp, and the one that I boiled is really mild. But also I use a lot more water with that one, because in the video you said like a big mug, and with the non-boiled one I used a really small amount of water. So maybe that's also the reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is the reason. Yeah.
I'm confused because are people saying the non-boiled one is more spicy?
Yes, definitely.
Yours.
Way more spicy.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I think I think you're right. It has to do with the amount of water, and I asked to put in more water in the decoction, because usually if you start boiling it, then a lot of water will evaporate, and I wanted you to end up with more or less the same amount of water than you used in the infusion. But I think that most of you have the experience that the decoction has more flavor, or at least is spicier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I see in the chat that infusion is smoother and the decoction a little bit sharper. A difference in color, yeah, too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's actually the difference between the ginger and the non-boiled one and the boiled one? Like, are there differences in the compounds that you're consuming, or?
Yeah, in a decoction, because you heat it during more time, the plant cells are breaking open a lot easier, so that more compounds can be released into the liquid. So yeah, and that's why it's sharper. That's why it has more taste than an infusion. And yeah, that is also a way to extract more of the flavor of the and more of the compounds of the plant. So and usually you use an infusion for leaves and for flowers, for the softer parts of the plant, and decoctions are used a lot more for roots, for barks, for berries, because of the way, well, they're harder, and so they need more time to be able to release all the compounds. And I wanted you to make a decoction and an infusion of this plant to really taste the difference. And I hope that you can taste it. And in comparison to the dandelion, do both plants have something in common, in your opinion?
This is really bitter.
Dandelion tea is really bitter? Yeah.
Do the other people also have like this weird layer on top of their cup, or did something go really wrong?
No, that's normal.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, what does decoction actually mean?
The decoction is when you boil the plant parts in the water. In Dutch, you would say afkooksel, or just boiling. While an infusion is that you boil the water, then you take it off the heating, and then you pour it over the plant parts. So that's the difference between the two. Yeah.
All right.
Let's see, because there's a lot of things happening in the chat. Oh my God, the simmered one was so spicy. It's interesting. Yeah. Okay, thanks for contributing how about the taste. I just wanted to add that both plants, as the ginger as well as dandelion, belong to the so-called bitter plants because they contain compounds with a bitter taste. And bitter compounds belong to a large variety of chemical groups. They can be alkaloids, they can be terpenes, they can be phenolics. And the only thing that they have in common is their bitter taste. And in phytotherapy, they form a group because the function of these compounds in the human body is similar. And what they do is that they stimulate the digestive tract. So the bitter receptors in the mouth are triggered. And they trigger the brain, and the brain triggers the digestive tract to release digestive juices. So you can't ingest bitters in a pill because you need to taste it in the mouth to be able, in order for the bitters to work in the body properly. And I can imagine you don't like to taste bitter tastes, but you can learn to like it. It's an acquired taste. So the more you eat it, the more you start to like it. And within this group of bitters, there are usually several groups being distinguished. There are the pure bitters, of which dandelion leaves and dandelion roots are an example. And they are just purely bitter. I imagine that you can taste it. It's really bitter, and that's it. And if you compare it, for example, to the ginger, it is also bitter, but also hot and spicy in a way. So these are called sharp bitters, because they are hot bitters, because they combine a bitter taste with a hot and spicy flavor. And these spicy compounds also stimulate digestion, but in a different way. Then there's a third group that is called the aromatic bitters. And they combine the bitter taste with essential oils, and the essential oils have an effect on the central nervous system or on the nervous system. So they have a two-way working also. So they can have a calming effect on your, they can have a calming effect while at the same time working at the digestive tract.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, an example is, for example, lavender, which is bitter if you taste it, but also very aromatic. And lavender is known to have this calming effect, but it's also really good for digestion. Another one is angelic root, or how do you call it? Engelwortel, which is also, and it's really, really interesting taste. And normally if we have this tasting in the classroom, I have some angelic root with me because the taste is so interesting. It's really, really bitter, but it also has a really interesting aroma. So pity, but I couldn't let you search for that plant because it's a lot less common than other plants such as dandelion. And then there's a fourth group, and they are called mucilaginous bitters. So these are bitters combined with the slimy feel, the mucilaginous. So for some people that sounds really gross because it's bitter and it's slimy. So that's ooh. And the burdock, which we already saw, is an example of this group. It's bitter and it's also kind of slimy. And they have a combination of, or they can combine an effect on digestion with also a mild care of the mucous membranes, for example, of the digestive tract. And yeah, as I said, burdock can actually be tasty, but not always. It depends also on the preparation. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the name of the second one you mentioned. Could you repeat it?
The second group,
yeah,
it's the sharp bitters. And they bitters in in a more how would you say, in the Latin language they call amara. I'll write it, amara. And then you have the amara pura, acria. I'm writing it down so you can see it. Pura, acria, aromatica, and mucilaginosa. These are the 4 groups. So if you want to know more about it, you could search more information on the internet. Let's see what you are writing in the chat. That's why a lot of tea fanatics have specific temperatures of water to be used for different teas. Yes, because if you make it too hot, for example, tannins are released easily and they have an astringent taste and are quite bitter. For example, in green tea, and a lot of people don't like that. So it depends on what you want to extract. Also, temperature is also a factor that can have an impact on extraction. Does that work uniformly on different people? I know people who have very different experience regarding ginger. Yeah. I think the working in the body is quite similar for all people. Of course, the way you perceive taste or flavor can be quite different, of course. And also, everybody is unique. And also, some plants which are good for digestion work very well for some people and less for other people, because in the body a lot of metabolization is taking place. So all these metabolites you are eating are metabolized in a different way also, and that's why not every regular medicine, but also not every herb is working in the same way for everybody. Yeah. No bitterness in the raspberry. Raspberry we are going to do in a minute. Well, it's like the blackberry. Is this why ginger is used for upset stomachs, motion sickness? Yes. Yeah. And does ginger work in pill form as it's often given on both, or does it need the taste to taste activate? I think you need taste activation. Of course, placebo effect is also present, but you need the taste effect. Yeah.
Nele, can I ask something?
Yeah.
In Suriname, when people have a sore throat, they just chew fresh ginger roots.
Yeah.
And I did it too. It's very hot, but then your throat ache is over. I don't know. Could you explain if that works and how it works?
Well, I'm not. That's not really. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know how exactly it works. But it has to do with. Well, it has anti-inflammatory properties, and if you work directly on the inflammation, it helps. And also, it has pain-killing properties. So you, how do you say, you mute the pain in a way. So that are 2 things why it works immediately, and that's what we at home also do. If we have a sore throat, immediately we eat the ginger roots, and then it's over. So it's a really strong it kills bacteria, it's a painkiller, and it's anti-inflammatory, and that's why it works so easily. And on the mucous membranes, or also of the throat.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see what. Oh, also just adding, as I said, in one of the videos, if you make a simple infusion of ginger, some of the signature compounds such as gingerols and shogaols are minimally extracted, and that's because they are non-polar or lipophilic compounds, and they are easier extracted in oil or in alcohol. So ginger tea is really tasty, and it contains also a lot of interesting compounds, but to extract these signature compounds, and I write it also in the chat, gingerols and shogaols, you need another kind of preparation, so you can eat it directly, and that's why, as I already explained, in the East, chai tea is made with milk, because the milk is added to be able to extract more of the interesting compounds, because fats are added. I just wanted to make that clear. And then let's move on to the last one, the blackberry leaves or the raspberry leaves. And what do you think? What's the effect in the mouth? What's happening? Taste, feeling in the mouth. What do you think of the taste, flavor?
It really reminds me of stinging nettle. Especially the smell.
Okay, yeah. Somebody else?
Like it's like you did it on purpose, first the ginger and then this, because it feels like over my burning mouth there's now a blanket of soothe tea. I don't know. It releases the sharpness, I don't know, the spiciness.
Yeah. Now the blackberry tea or the raspberry tea, yeah, I can imagine what you're saying, Robin. Somebody else?
I do see a sort of oily layer on top of my tea, a sort of thing that doesn't dissolve.
I have the same, but I was wondering whether that was maybe because I plucked it off the side of the road, and I'm trying to scoop out that top layer because I have a feeling like maybe that's exhaust or...
No, I have the same as well, and I grabbed raspberry leaves off of the bush in my garden and then washed them carefully, so it's not because of exhaust. Maybe it's some kind of waxy coating on the leaf that gets released when you put hot water on it, then floats to the top and solidifies there again. Oh, and raspberry leaf tea is delicious. It's like really good. I'm gonna use it in cocktails. This is awesome. It's not bitter.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, I think the layer is normal, and I think what Susie explains, that's yeah, there are some of interesting compounds are released. Also, essential oils can be part of it, some of it, because they are of course not really water soluble. But if you steep it for a long time, sometimes you see them on top of on top of the water. So that's it's normal. It's a bit like mint. Somebody says it's a little bit sweet. Did you wash them too? Yeah. Okay, you can wash. Apart from the taste, does it also have an effect in the mouth? Is it bitter?
Yes, for me, it gives me a very dry mouth. All the mucus that came in from the other tastings is now gone.
Yeah.
A little bit astringent.
Yes, that's what I wanted to hear. And because apart from taste, it has an astringent effect, and this is an effect you can also feel and taste when you drink red wine or green tea. It dries the mouth. You have a constriction of the mouth in a way. And the compounds that cause this effect of blackberry leaves are tannins. And these belong to the flavonoids, which are phenolic compounds, and they are water soluble. And this astringent effect, what they do is like this. And it helps in case of diarrhea. It constricts the bowels in a very plastic way of saying it. And also in case of wounds, it helps wounds to heal quicker because it also closes the wound. So simply said, it helps to constrict wounds. It stops bleeding. It's also constricting capillaries and cell walls of tissues. So it can be used internally as well as externally. And tannins were also used in tanning, so the making of leather, because tannins bind to the proteins in the skin, and these astringents precipitate or laten neerslaan proteins. And so that is how tanning or the making of leather takes place. That's because of the tannins. And so these are interesting compounds which really are water soluble, so you can easily extract them in water. Astringent is samentrekkend in Dutch. I wouldn't know in other languages, but and it's that mouth drying feeling. If you drink red wine, your whole mouth is like a little bit crunching. That's that's the astringency.
I have a question. So in a lot of books and everywhere, they warn you to use wild plants for example, treating wounds because of the bacterial infections that can be caused by them. What's a treatment of these fresh leaves that makes it safe to use them in open wounds, for example?
That's the same effect. It's also because of the tannins that you can use it.
No, because of the bacteria on the leaves.
Okay, yeah.
You can use them, right? At the roadside, doing them on an open wound, you could infect the wound by the bacteria on the leaves.
Yeah, you could infect them, but also these plants have antibacterial properties. So, and I know what you say, and if you want to have a more safe way of applying it, you could make a steam distillation, and then of course your hydrosol is sterile, so you could use it in a safer way. But if you look at the facts, it has the antibacterial properties are apparently stronger than the bacteria which are on the plants. So maybe they're also helping in the process. So how this really, there is a lot of things that need to be researched still, but I think this is a really interesting question. Why do some bacteria hurt you and others heal you? Yeah.
But Nele, if you boil these plants in hot water, then it's also sort of sterile because you also kill the bacteria on the leaves, I guess.
Yeah, you kill the bacteria, but you still have organic plant material in your end product. So yeah, you can use it in a sterile way, but you can, for example, conserve it, or because if you an infusion in 2 or 3 days, it's going bad, and in hydrosol you can keep for like a year or something. So there is a difference in both preparations.
And would you, on an open wound, would you pour the water over it, or use just a little bit, or how would you apply that then?
I would mix it with clay, or how do you call it? Clay? Is that clay? No. Yeah, to make a poultice. Yeah, and poultice is like a herbal paste that you put on the wounds. So I would do it like that, and then you could also apply other herbs or other essential oils, for example. So there are a lot of different preparations you could make. Yeah. Morgan says, so chopping the leaves into small pieces and then mix with clay. No, in that case, I would make an infusion or a decoction and then strain it and then mix it with clay. Yeah, but you could, if you are in the field, you can easily also masticate the plants and then apply it to the skin. That's also a way of, for example, of using, how do you call it, duizendblad, Achillea millefolium. What's the name? Yarrow. They used it like that. They masticated, put it on wounds during wars. When you're in the battlefield, that's an immediate, yeah, it immediately stops the bleeding. So it's interesting. Yeah, and there are other interesting suggestions in the chat. Thanks for adding that. Let's see.
Why don't you just wash them with soap before you put them on an open wound? If you're picking leaves from somewhere close to the ground, a dog might have pissed on it, a fox might have shit on it, there's parasites in there, a cat might have pissed on it. You can get diseases from that. So please wash your leaves before putting them on open wounds.
Yeah. But if you are on your, if you're simply in the way, yeah, if you're on the way, you can't just wash it. Of course, if you're close to somewhere, then you can use the soap, but yeah, not always.
Yeah, I mean, if you're somewhere else then
for example, if you're on a hike,
generally speaking, you're never going to be more than 2-3 kilometers away from, if necessary, a house where you can freaking ask for some soap. Because it could be me, maybe I'm just very paranoid, but especially if someone has a weak immune system, don't put possible animal pee and bacteria on your open wounds, especially considering that things like fungi can still also make you sick, and those can grow on leaves just fine.
Yeah.
Like, this just sounds like a very unsafe idea.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. I agree with you completely. But if you are on a hike in the mountains and or on a battlefield, like that was the example that I gave. If you're on a battlefield and yeah, there's just nothing else, then you put it on. And of course, if you can wash it, it's better. And specifically for plants that are close to the ground, which is not so necessary if you. Well, in my opinion, if you use the leaves of trees or something, and still there, of course, there can be parasites, there can be bacteria, etc. So, yeah, it's a discussion. Yeah, that is very interesting and necessary also. Yeah.
I think a question still about the wounds, because I was reading a book. Well, and in that book they were also describing that they were using some powder of a plant that was dried, and then putting it on the open wounds, and then you doing like a paste also with I guess some clay and other herbs to stop. I think the first dry mixture. Like kind of powder was first to stop the first bleeding, and then the paste with clay and other herbs, and then some herbs, full leaves to cover the hole. Is that something, those dry leaves powder?
Yeah, yeah. You can make leaf powders. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Because if the leaves get older, it's not getting less strong, let's say, the effects.
Yes, yeah. So it's best to use as fresh as possible, or to dry it in the biggest possible way, so the whole leaf. And if you want to use it as a powder, then you powder it and immediately apply it. So don't powder it and use it in a year from now, because then, well, a lot of the yeah, the efficacy of the plant is will be gone. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I see that's already past 5, so let's move on. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to go to the toilets, maybe a 2-minute break. I don't know if it's necessary, but let's do a 2-minute break. And then I'll just go through the chat, because I think I missed a lot, because so many things are shared. And
Nele, please follow your own program, and if there's time, you can go through the chat. Otherwise, we're delaying your lecture. Because I also read the chat and sometimes give answers, but it's better to finish your presentation, and then you can still do the chat questions afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody asked if the lecture takes longer. Is it okay if I leave at 6? Of course, yeah. I hope to finish before 6 o'clock. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on with the herbal preparations that you made today. I hope you managed to prepare the tincture or the liqueur, the ointment, and the herbal vinegar. Let's start with the tincture. Maybe can you show me the tincture you made? It can be strained, it can be unstrained, but yeah. Nice to see. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for showing us. I made a little PowerPoint with some interesting effects of the plants, and I will also explain how you can use the tincture. So let me just try to share my screen with you. Yeah, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, there in the PowerPoint you meet the 8 plants of the collage, of which you prepared one. As I explained, ethanol extracts extract water soluble as well as liposoluble substances, and I have mentioned some of the signature compounds in this PowerPoint, which you will see in a minute. And some of you in the presentations mentioned other compounds, more compounds. Well done. These are just a few of them. And of course, each plant contains many, many more. And as you make a tincture, you extract compounds from both groups, the liposoluble as well as the water-soluble plant compounds. So, and that gives you already some clues what you can use the tincture for. Please always be careful, because some of the tinctures, all tinctures are medicinal. Some of the tinctures you could use as a kind of liqueur by adding sugar or another sweetener. So if you made a tincture of poppy, the blackberry leaves, valerian, and mugwort, you could easily make it into a liqueur by adding something sweet. but preferably you mix it with something else. So always be careful. And yeah, for the tinctures, the dosage is indicated. So if you want to use it for a specific ailment, and if you want more information, yeah, well, always search for more information if you really want to use it. And always check contraindications, which means that in certain cases, if you have a specific ailment, sometimes you don't you don't use a specific tincture. And also it can have interactions with regular medication or other herbs. So check also for interactions. Specifically, St. John's wort has a lot of contraindications and interactions. But I'll show you what I have done. So there are, and you will receive this PowerPoint also. I will send it to Tinder. But there are the 8 different plants which you could have used for the tincture. A smaller weegwee or a plantain. Sorry?
Go ahead, Nele.
Okay. Plantain is one, I think a lot of you made a tincture out of this. You could use it in case of bronchitis, cough, or sore throat. And it has really, it's a rich variety of different compounds and a rich variety of effects in the body. There are water-soluble as well as liposoluble compounds. I won't treat them all now, just read it at home. It's quite interesting. And you know, when you make a tincture, you extract these water-soluble as well as the liposoluble substances. For example, here, klaproos, which is a tincture you could use also in case of bronchitis, cough, and fever. I saw somebody mentioned that it is a toxic plant, which is not the case. This is a plant you even can use for children. And of course, toxicity is in the dose. If you use a lot, it can still be toxic, of course. And yeah, also this plant has a lot of interesting compounds, some of which are alkaloids, and alkaloids belong to the more dangerous plant compounds, but also the more effective compounds. And in this case, rhoadine, for example, is one of the compounds. It's a really mild alkaloid, which has a sedative, somniferous effect. So it helps you to sleep, also to calm down. Then there's a willow, and the willow contains salicylic acid, or salicin. It's another. It transforms later on in salicylic acid, which is an analgesic. So it's a painkiller, and this is the compound of which also aspirin is later developed. And it can be used in case of pain, fever, and flu, and also the dosage which you could use, it's indicated in the slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because you are speaking about a tincture, but I don't understand, how do you take tincture, or how do you apply it? Is it something you drink, or?
Yeah, you could use it in a little bottle and then put it on a spoon and take it like that. But then the taste of the alcohol is really strong. So what you could use is, for example, do it in a tea or mix it with, let's say, yogurt or something that makes it a little bit more palatable to ingest. But you could use it like with a little dropper, like 2 milliliter, and then just well, I'll close my nose and I'll take it. And
doesn't the alcohol has also effect on the body?
Yeah, the alcohol helps to in the uptake of the plant compounds directly in the bloodstream instead of going through your whole digestive tract. Okay. Because there you have the little liver and the kidneys who act like a filter. So they protect your body against weird substances, but more or less 20% of the substances are uptaken directly in the bloodstream if because of the alcohol. So it has an effect in itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Nele, I also have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge on the combination of the things we're discussing now on ADHD medication? Because I have ADHD medication and I was wondering which ones I might be careful with.
I wouldn't know that like that, but if you, well, you could, there's a really beautiful book, and without any doubt, you can find it at university, this one. This is, well, no, this is a Dutch one for the Dutch-speaking people, and this is a English one for the English-speaking people. And there you can find a lot of information about it and about interactions with, well, this is not so much about interactions, in fact. So, but you could look it up on the internet, and you, if you want to, write me a note on the Brightspace, and I can look it up for you. But now, like this, I don't know it about all the plants. So yeah, but write me a note, and I'll.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Then the common mallow tincture, which is interesting in case of mild respiratory infections. In fact, because of the large amount of mucilages in the plant, which are highly water soluble, it's actually better to make a tea. But still, if you use a lower alcohol percentage, you could make a tincture out of it, and then you can use it in case of mild respiratory infections. The most interesting compounds in these plants are water soluble. Then bijvoet. Bijvoet has a really interesting taste. That's why it's also used a lot in liqueurs. But you could actually also use it as a medicinal tincture in case of digestive disorders, for example. It contains a little bit of thuone, and thuone is a compound that is considered toxic. But then you would have to drink a lot before you have actually a nasty effect out of it. If you use it in high dosages, it is used as an abortifacient. So if you're pregnant, be very careful. And it was used in the past as birth control. I wouldn't recommend it because, you could end up with a baby and misformation, so or malformated. Then valerian or Valeriana officinalis. It's one of those plants which is used in case of insomnia. So you could use a little bit more, like a spoonful before bedtime, half an hour before bedtime, to make sure you can sleep. It's a really interesting plant which has a sedative and calming effect on the nervous system and on one of the neurotransmitters, GABA, which is gamma amino butyric acid. And it's used in case of anxiety, fear, stress, and it helps you to calm down. So what it also does, if you're sleeping and your head is like, very active, it helps to slow it down. And that's really interesting before an exam, for example. Blackberry, you could use it in case of diarrhea. But in case of diarrhea, in fact, that's not for nothing. You have to let it go first, and then you have to stop it, because don't use it immediately. Take it only after a day or so, and then you can start up building, or how do you call it? You can start up building your normal stool again. It's really, really rich in vitamin C and in these tannins, which are astringent. They, in case of diarrhea, they contract the bowel. And the last one is St. John's wort. This is a one, don't use it lightheadedly, because this is has many contraindications, many interactions with the normal regular medicine. But it is interesting in case of anxiety or fear. It's used as an antidepressant. Maybe it's more interesting if you want to use it in skin, so that you use the tincture in, for example, a little bit in a cream or something. It heals burns and wounds, and it's also a really great analgesic, a painkiller. But yeah, these are just some. I want to see you again, because as just stop sharing for a moment. I will give you this PowerPoint presentation because there's a lot of information in it and we can't go over it now. So let's see what you're saying in the chat. Yeah, pfaf.org is a very useful site for edible and medicinal uses. So thanks for adding that, Martien. Yeah, ADHD medication, then you have that, well, they work usually on dopamine. So one of the neurotransmitters, so you have to be careful that you don't use the opposite. So yeah, there can be some interactions. Can you write references of the books? Yeah, remind me at the end of the lecture, then I'll put it in the chat. Or, well, no, let me do it. Otherwise, I will share it in the Brightspace. I will make a copy of the books on Brightspace and just write it down.
Something.
Sorry?
Can I ask something?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you mentioned that the papaver ruas is not poisonous, but that's only for the leaves, right? Because the seeds.
Yeah.
Can you even use them to make opium or something? Make heroin out of it? Or,
no,
or
that's
something
not this
similar?
poppy. That's not this poppy. That's another poppy. But,
yeah, but
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I actually read about that yesterday, and like some people say that there's also another one. I think the Blake quapros. I don't know the scientific name for that which you can actually use to make like opium substances, and someone even said that you could just use the papaver ruas. You can even just eat the seed zaaddozen. So the things where the seeds are in, just eat them and then go absolutely like become high or something. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't think you get high. I think you fall asleep. But okay. Yeah, you would have to eat a lot of it before that happens. It's the seeds of the poppy are called maanzaad. So you have it also on sandwiches or little bread rolls, etc. But you would have to eat a lot of them before you have any effect. And I can imagine that if you use a lot, then it gets toxic. But that's the case with a lot of plant compounds, even with the ones that aren't considered toxic. In a specific dose, it's the toxicity. Yeah.
But I'm having right now a book in front of me that says the only not toxic thing in the papaver are the seeds, and the green and the milky juice and the green parts are all toxic. At least not of this papaver, but of the somniferum and the bracteatum, and basically every other papaver is the green parts and the milky stuff, and the seeds always edible. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's also another kind of papaver, and there I would say other something else. But the papaver roas, it can even be used for children, and then it's the case with the flower petals. And now I'm talking about a tincture made with the flower petals, and you can even use it for children. So that already says it's not so toxic, because otherwise you wouldn't use it for children. Yeah.
I can add here that the papaver that is used for heroin and opium production in Afghanistan is the one with the bluish leaves and the purple bluish pink flowers. Papaver somniferum, subspecies somniferum, and it is a special cultivar developed by farmers and plant breeders to contain the most opium. So if you want to eat papavers or use opium, that you better use the opium papaver, because it was specially domesticated for that. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's no use to eat the less opium containing poppies for that.
Yeah, true.
Can I ask something still about papaver? Because right now I have this wonderful tincture, and you mentioned being able to make a liqueur out of this. And if that's true, then I'm going to add a lot of sugar and a bit of water to it, and drink it rather than use it as a tincture. So I'd like to check that. Is that a thing?
Yeah,
it smells really nice.
Yeah, you could do that. And if you think, well, the flavor's not so interesting, then you could add other interesting flavors like mugwort, the bijvoet, or also cinnamon or whatever, all kind of spices, and then you could easily use it. Also, the poppy petals are used to make a syrup. So instead of extracting with alcohol, you could also extract with water and then add sugar and then use it as a syrup. And then it's a cough syrup, but also some people consider it tasty. So, but you can easily do that. Yeah, no problem.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't drink a whole bottle at once, but.
No, I'll drink it responsibly. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about terminology. So, like, I noticed that a lot of these names, like tincture and poultice, they seem very like almost old school, like very old-fashioned. But what you're saying, for a lot of these plants and everything, they're used in a lot of like almost modern day cosmetics, especially like in creams or in serums. Like, how many of these just are like almost rebranded with a different name to make it more acceptable? Or do they have these different names because they have medicinal uses versus just cosmetic ones?
Yeah, I think, well, it's certainly a fact of terminology, but yeah, you could say an ethanol extraction, or you could name it tincture, but tincture is usually used as you use it as a medicinal ingredient. But also in cosmetics, I would use the same terminology. But you're right, it's also rebranded in a way, and then they just say ethanol extraction, or maybe even other kinds of extractions. But it's not, well, tincture is not old school. It's still used a lot today, but of course, yeah, in the past it was used a lot more before the development of the pill as an application method. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with respect to the PowerPoint, I will upload it later on so that you can, for your own tincture, see what's in there and how you could use it. If you still have questions about that, put them on the bright space, and I'll try to give you an answer to that. Let's go to the ointment. Can you please show me the ointment you made? Wow, different colors, beautiful. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. As a starter, was it difficult to make? And what do you think of the texture?
I think I put in a bit too much beeswax because it's really hard.
Yeah.
And it also smells terribly.
What plant
I used the duizendblad.
The what?
The duizendblad.
Oh yeah, yarrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does not smell nice.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe next time I will add some perfume or something.
Yeah. A lot of these plants are really interesting to use medicinally, but the smell is not so interesting. And then you could add, for example, essential oils, not only to cover the stench, but also essential oils have interesting medicinal properties as well. So you could combine essential oils with a specific working in the same direction as the ointment you make. So that's really something you could do, and there's a lot of information about essential oils on the internet. So, and there are a lot of different ones. So if you don't like the specific, for example, I don't like the smell of roses, then you don't use the rose essential oil, but another one which has almost the same properties, for example. So that's
I'll try that.
Yeah. And yarrow is not a very interesting smelling oil, but also smearwortel. So the Symphytum officinale is not so nice, and vogelmuur or chickweed is even worse. I think it's one of the worst smells I know. I don't know if anybody here used vogelmuur or chickweed, but yeah.
But I used the Hypericum, the St. Johnsworth, and it smells really nice.
Yeah, it depends on the plant, and it also can depend on the oil you use. So, for example, if you use, let's say, walnut oil has a really nice smell, but if you extract plants in it and then you, for example, use it in an ointment or in a cream or a day cream, you will smell like walnut all day, and then it becomes rather horrible because it's close to your nose, and that's.
I used the chamomile, but I was wondering when it was mixing, how do you make sure that the wax is kind of like going all over the liquid? Because for me, all the wax went up. I don't know if it happened to somebody else. You know, when you mix the oil with the wax?
Yeah, you have to melt it together until the wax is completely melted, and then it's normally it's just like a liquid, and then you pour it, and then.
Okay.
I was shaking it like crazy for 5 minutes while it was hot inside the towel, and then it was perfectly creamy mixed. Yeah.
I also mixed it like this, Robin.
Oh.
Yeah, if you use wax, a wax normally has a higher melting point, like above 60 degrees. So you have to melt it really, so that it combines totally with the oil. And if you pour it, then it has to be completely homogeneous.
Okay.
And normally you don't even have to stir. So if you melt it, then it's melted, and then it's completely combined.
I just put some lemongrass oil in my essential oil, and now it smells really good.
Yeah,
doesn't stink. I also used yarrow, so it really was an awful smell.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and I think I haven't done this because I didn't want you to have to buy something like an essential oil, because essential oils can be a bit pricey, so that's why I left it out. But you can easily add it. So if the smell is too horrible, just melt it again, and then add some essential oil, and it will be better. I have also the same kind of PowerPoint with the 8 plants of which you have chosen one. And as I explained, oil extracts liposoluble substances. So I have mentioned some of the signature compounds of the different plants. And of course, again, plants contain many more. But as you make an oil, and that's different than in case of a tincture, you only extract the interesting amounts of compounds from the liposoluble group. So that's just, let me show you. Share screen. For example, if you look at the smaller Wegelee, there are water-soluble as well as liposoluble substances that are really interesting. But if you make an oil infusion, you only extract the liposoluble substances. So that's something to take into consideration. Huh? If you use a plant in a specific way, with a tincture you extract both. With an oil infusion, you extract the liposoluble substances, and with the water extractions, you extract water-soluble substances. I'm just going to close it because there are the 8 plants that that you could choose from. Also chamomile and chickweed and nettle, yarrow, daisy, comfrey, and St. John's wort. And there is a lot of information about these plants in the slides, but I'm going to stop the sharing because otherwise we won't finish on time. But I'll quickly tell something about the different plants. Well, all these ointments you made can be used for skin problems such as wounds, itches, bruises, skin infections. So they all have a working on the skin in a medicinal way. So they help you to heal your skin. For example, chickweed is particularly strong against itches, for example, caused by mosquito bites, but also, you know, that caterpillar that you nowadays find in oaks that causes rashes. Chickweed is really, really strong against the itches caused by this also. Comfrey and daisy, so smeerwortel and madeliefje, are specifically strong against bruises, against wounds. Very interesting. Yarrow and chamomile, so duizendblad and kamille, they share some interesting compounds, so they can be used for all kinds of skin problems. I think these are among the most interesting plants you can find in the Netherlands in the wild. In fact, this whole group of 8 plants are all interesting skin plants, and some of them would also be interesting as water extractions. And so you could make a hydrosol out of yarrow or chamomile and use it in the water components of, for example, a cream. So you make a wound cream, and then you add water and fat with an emulsifier. But yeah, that's not something we are going to do now. But so they are really interesting plants. Stinging nettle is typically a plant for which very few research has been done, and the effect on the skin and also on hair is empirically based, so it is really, really good skin plant, but it is not exactly known why it works or which combination of compounds is responsible for its working. And nettle can also be used in as a fat extraction as well as a water extraction. And then just a word on comfrey or smeerwortel. It's a plant that is used to treat wounds and skin problems, also bruises, backaches, rheumatism, and it heals open wounds really quickly, and therefore it's important not to only apply it on open wounds if they are properly properly disinfected, because if not, the skin can grow back really fast and leaves an inflammation under the skin, so a kind of encapsulated infection. So be careful, only use it on a really properly disinfected skin. You can also use the roots, because now I said to use the leaf. You can also use the roots, and it has the same properties, but then you have to harvest it in autumn. And comfrey is an extremely interesting plant, but it also is a problematic plant because it contains some problematic chemical constituents, which are called pyrrolizidine alkaloids. And these are types of alkaloids that are harmful to the liver. So they pile up in the liver if you ingest them. So if you use them a lot, you can end up in the long run with liver cirrhosis or even liver cancer. And that's why you should avoid to consume it. It's not an edible plant, it's a medicinal plant. And the fact is that these alkaloids, these problematic alkaloids, are water soluble. So if you make a tea or a hydrolate, they will be part of it, but they are not liposoluble. So if you make an oil infusion, as you have done, or some of you might have done, the pyrrolizidine alkaloids will not be dissolved, which means that your end product will not contain these alkaloids. And that's also the reason that you have prepared it like this. So I had a reason to prepare it like this. And moreover, the plant also contains another compound, which is allantoin. I will write that in the chat. Oh, that's the Dutch variety, but yeah, allantoin. And this is a chemical constituent which stimulates the growth of tissue, of cartilage, of muscle cells and bones. And that is exactly the substance you want to store in this ointment. That's good for the skin and cell regeneration, etc., etc. And luckily, this is soluble in fat. So you have two reasons to make an oil infusion of comfrey, of smearwortel. The pyrrolizidine alkaloids are not extracted, and the allantoin is extracted, and that is exactly what you want to do. And a lot more things are, can be said about this product, but you get the PowerPoint, and then you can see what how you could use it. Some of the plants or some of the ointments you made are better for wounds and bruises, and other ones are you could use more for itches. But that's in the PowerPoint. So look your own plant up in the PowerPoint. Oh, I see that a lot of shit is shared in the chat. I cannot answer everything. I see RSI, suffering people, comfrey works amazing. Yes, that's true. Yeah, somebody says, I was wondering when I looked up this plant for the video, I found that actually in Swiss, they make bread of it, and it's often used in salads in England. Yeah, and that's exactly what also a lot of people will say. It is edible, it won't kill you in the short run, but it builds up in the liver. So if you eat it once in a while, okay, you could eat it, but don't do it every week or even every month, because then in the long run it will kill you. But also a lot of things can kill you in the long run. You can also say, I just eat it, just as I smoke a cigarette or I use a lot of alcohol. Everybody can do what he wants. It's not that the plant is really toxic in an immediate way. So. But I wanted to warn you, I don't consider it an edible plant. If the ointment is too hard, can you melt it again to add more oil? Yes, you can do that. And then it becomes a little softer. Yeah. And then you can also add some essential oils for the smell if you want to.
Yeah, I have a little question about the essential oil. When do you have to add it? Because I was wondering if you have to add it when it's not boiling, but like in the little bath, or later, just before it gets hard, or and how much?
Yeah, just before it gets hard, because essential oils are volatile, and if you put them in your mixture when it's 60 degrees, then part of it will evaporate and it will break down some of the essential oils. So best is to add it when it's about around 40 degrees Celsius, and just before it starts to harden. And that's a little bit tricky because if it's really starting to harden, then it's difficult to move it around. And use between, for the most essential oils, you use between 1 to 3%. If you make a medicinal mixture. In this case, it's a medicinal mixture. So you could use, for example, 1 to 3% of lavender essential oil, which is in fact a good skin regenerator. And yeah, so yeah, 1 to 3% of the total of your little bottle. So yeah.
And if you have a lid for your bottle, then could you also put it a bit earlier to make sure that it's well mixing with the ointments, and close it properly? Or
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, because you say it's volatile, so it can go away. But if you have a lid to your little jar, is it then fine to put the oil maybe when it's still a little bit hot, to close it? So it's
Yeah,
not
you can close. You can close it, and then instead of evaporating, well, they have no other choice than at least partially stay in the oil. So that's something you could do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Also, just one more thing, because I forgot to remove the chamomile flowers. Is it a problem for the conservation of the ointment, or is it fine also?
I would recommend taking it out because it can start to, because you used fresh plant parts with water in it, it can start to mold. So that's why I said strain it first and then add the waxes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I was wondering if you can combine different oil infusions that we made. Like, can we?
Yeah.
Is it okay to mix all of them, or is there some that you really shouldn't mix?
No, in this case, all the ones that you made, you can mix together, and then you can make a really strong, really interesting ointment. So yeah, you could easily do that, and then you have a really powerful skin ointment. Yeah, I usually carry a little, how do you say it, a little box, like 10 milliliters in my purse that I carry around. And it's good for itches and when you have bruises or a scratch or something. And if you are a lot of in the forest like me, then it's very easy to if you have it with you. So
okay, and I had another question. For the oil extractions, do you also have to heat them for a longer time if it's like sturdier parts of the plant?
I don't know what you mean. How you?
So like with the tinctures, like if you had like a woodier plant part, you would have to let it sit for a longer time. But does that also go for the oil extractions?
Yeah, in general, if you use the warm method, so if you heat it a bit, then they say in 48 hours, all the interesting compounds should be in there, and the process of osmosis then is finished in a way. But if you use the cold method, then yeah, harder parts you macerate a little bit longer than, for example, flower petals, or there are more quickly emptied in the oil. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, maybe a little bit off topic, but you said you're often in the forest. Is there a top tip against ticks? Because I don't know how many ticks per day if I'm in the forest, and maybe there's something to first, not attract them so much, or later just give them a little tip with a tincture and they just let loose or something.
Yeah, the last thing you say I wouldn't know, but I use a homemade kind of oil with essential oils that are really horrible for ticks. So, and let me put a recipe on the blackboard or on the Brightspace also, okay?
Yeah,
just write it down. Oil for ticks. And it's possible that it doesn't work for everybody because ticks also are attracted by other things, and that's can be it can depend on what you eat, for example, but in general this is something that works pretty well, so I'll put it on Brightspace. Let me see, we have a couple of minutes left, and I wanted just to say something about the herbal vinegar also. Can you please show me the vinegar you made? Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's all those different colors. Thank you. Thank you. Really nice. Well, in the video, I explained some interesting features of the used plant parts. And in this mixture, acidity is a factor apart from polarity that helps to extract certain compounds. So, certain compounds need an acidic environment to be able to extract them more easily. And that's why you use sometimes a vinegar. And we added some really interesting plants like ginger, which has an antiviral effect and also balances the immune system. For example, it protects the cilia of the lungs. And in a way, when in this COVID-19 period, it prevents harm caused by a lack of oxygen. Curcuma has strong anti-inflammatory properties. Garlic is interesting for the immune system, etc. A lot of I explained something also in the video. What's also interesting to add, and that's something that I forgot to mention in the video, you add black pepper because it contains piperine, which is also an alkaloid, and it assists in the uptake of curcumin from curcuma. Because curcuma is very difficult to be uptaken by the body, and the piperine assists in this process. And what you can do with this really interesting recipe, you leave it like for 6 weeks in your bottle so that all the goodies will stick to the vinegar. And then you can do a couple of things, or you can strain it, or you can leave all the stuff in there. If you strain it, you can take a spoonful every morning to strengthen your immune system, and triple the amount if you feel that a cold is coming up or a flu is coming up. And if you think it's too strong to eat, because of course vinegar is vinegar, it has a strong taste, you can also add it to juices or smoothies, or as a flavoring in your salad or in a stew, or just in something you cook. And I know people that put the staff mixer, how do you call it? The mixer in the mixture, and then all your plant parts are transformed in a kind of puree. And then you could easily add it to all kinds of recipes. For example, if you make a stew of vegetables, put it in there as a flavoring compounds, and that's really, really tasty. And yeah, of course, not everybody is a fan of vinegar, but it's really, really tasty because of all the plant parts that are in there. Let's see, do you need to keep the vinegar in the dark? Well, I always prefer that, because then you don't have oxidation because of the light. Stick mixer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between leaving it in the vinegar for 6 weeks and just blending it straight away? Because I actually kind of made this exact mixture, but would just blend it straight away and just drink it. It was very intense, but what's the difference?
Yeah, if you blend it immediately, then you take all the all the plant parts entirely. Well, you eat them together with, of course, the vinegar. But if you make an extraction and you put all the plant parts out of the vinegar afterwards, well, then you need time for the plant parts to release all the goodies in the vinegar. So what you do, you blend it immediately, then you have the whole plant part that is, or the whole plant that is used. And if you make an extraction, then you, part of the plants, you throw away in a way. And then you need this extraction process. Yeah. And of course, you can also, instead of making a vinegar, you can use all these plants and just put them into your food. That's no problem. Yeah. Then you.
I had a question. So I have like this bigger jar, and I use the exact same recipe, same amount. Could I put more vinegar in there? Would it dilute the taste and the flavor of it too much?
Oh, you could add more vinegar, yeah, but don't dilute it too much, because then you have a really weak taste also. Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe like 50 milliliters.
Can you show me the jar? Just see where you are.
I'm here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's okay. You could add a little bit more of vinegar, but I wouldn't do too much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody asked, does the vinegar mixture need to cover all of the chopped components? Yes, because, well, in a way you have a dam on top of it, which is acid also, but everything that sticks out of it can mold. So it's best to put it, if you really want, if the plant parts don't want to sink into the vinegar, you can, for example, use a little plastic bag filled with water and put it on top of it. That's an option, although plastic and vinegar, I don't know, that's not maybe a good idea. Or put a brick on it. That's the way they make also, how do you call it? Sauerkraut. I tasted a spoon of the vinegar, it was good. Okay, that's good to hear. So you can use it directly in a smoothie or in a dish as a flavoring, right? Yeah, yes, you can use it directly. Then you could use it as a how do you call it? A dosage which you use every day to just strengthen your immune system. But you can also use it as a flavoring for flavoring your food. So that's that's a condiment. Huh? Okay, I think there are still questions left. Is there a really how do you call it? dringend, a question that is really that needs an answer now, please then open your microphone, because there's so much in the group chat that I can not. Pressing question. Yes, that's it. Pressing. Does anyone has a pressing question? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up, I think, because it's 6 o'clock. And I wanted to wrap up by saying, to make a short conclusion, I really, really hope you enjoyed the process of making these different preparations. And of course, these were rather simple, so that you could all participate at home. But I really hope you understand the rationalization behind it. So the idea of making these products yourself is not that you actually learn how to make it, and not even to learn all about the plants and their chemical compounds used in the process, although that's really nice. But I want you to be able to evaluate what you're doing. If you, for example, work as a researcher or as an ethnobotanist, and you go into the field and you talk to all kinds of people that work with plants, such as healers, midwives, basket makers, etc., I want you to start thinking about how, but also why they use different ingredients, and because it gives you a lot of information about the plants they use and their chemical compounds. So it's not about these specific plants, it's not about the nettle, or it's about the chamomile. You can forget what compounds they have. Don't learn that by heart, it's not necessary, but start to think like an ethnobotanist. Why are they, for example, if you go into the field and somebody is brewing something with oil, then you can think, why is she brewing it with oil and not with water? Because probably the most interesting compounds are liposoluble. And that is what I wanted you to, well, to start thinking about. So all these people that prepare plants are not acting randomly; they act purposefully, and I hope that you, capture that in my videos also. And sometimes the most interesting preparation is a tea, but sometimes it's an ointment, a tincture, a vinegar, or even an ice cream. And there is a logic behind plant preparations, which can be scientifically proven, even if the user itself is not aware of the chemistry behind it, because of a lot of traditional healers don't know anything about chemistry, but they know how plants work. And it's a skill to be learned, and it makes life enjoyable also. I'm really, I'm a fanatic, so I really like it, but I hope you enjoy the process, and I hope you start cooking and making a lot of interesting recipes with the plants. Pressing questions.
Thank you, Nele. I thought it was extremely interesting. It's really, really a nice topic. But I would like to say something, because I'm planning, it's actually for the group, because I'm planning to go this weekend on a bit of a plant hunt, and I already have quite some knowledge about the Dutch flora, and I'll just go to a natural area and especially look for like edible plants and this kind of things. So if there's someone who wants to join me, then you're welcome. I can tell you something, or maybe you can tell me something. So if anyone is interested in that, then I would be happy to hear it. Thank you, Nele.
I like it. I like it. Please join him. You learn a lot of when you combine all the information. All of you have different kind of experiences. If you combine everything, you are so powerful. So do that.
Little question about it, because now you were talking also about the policy, you call it, in the Netherlands, that is not allowed, and you also mentioned that we could ask for it, but is this kind of allowed to gather some plants in the nature by, I don't know, asking someone permission, or is just not allowed and you have to do it not officially and illegally?
Yeah, it's not allowed unless you have permission of the owner or the manager of the area where you're in. And I know that if you go to an area managed by Staatsbosbeheer, that's one of the nature conservancy, well, kind of institution in the Netherlands. They allow it if you don't harvest too much. It's like yeah, a little bag you can easily harvest, no problem. And you can always ask, and normally people don't have any problems with it as long as you don't harvest, of course, the endangered species. And for example, if you want to harvest stinging nettle, no one will kill you because they're rather rid of it than that it is in the area. So, but it is prohibited. But a blind eye is usually turned. Yeah.
Because they are really control.
In some areas, there is a control. For example, in the Amsterdam forest, how do you call it? There, close to Amsterdam, you have this forest, and everybody is going there to harvest. And there is really they are patrolling because of this. So be careful. But usually, if you are in the rest of the Netherlands, there won't be much of a problem. Yeah.
Just say you're from the ethnobotany course of Wageningen University. Then they let you go.
Yeah. Yeah. You can say, Tinder told me to do it.
Do so.
Yeah. No, usually it's no problem. And I think the problem is more with other people who are walking there than with the owner of the or the manager of the area, because other people sometimes say, "Oh, what are you doing? You're harming the area, etc." And of course, they're right. Huh? So you have to be careful. Okay, if you have other questions, put them on Brightspace. And yeah, and I have two things I put on Brightspace about the books and the oil for the ticks. And if there are other pressing questions, please, I'm glad to answer them. And thanks for all the information about the plants and the videos and the recipes. It's really interesting. And you get a recipe book, a cooking book. So thanks for being here. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Nele. I think we can give an applause with all the mics.
Thanks for participating, and I enjoyed that you were so all really participating well and doing all the assignments. So thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of the course with Tin, the other lecturers.
Okay, see you tomorrow, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.